My name is Bobby Joshi, and I'm a researcher here at Adobe. And I'd like you to, we're doing this in collaboration with dance. And this evening we're going to be looking at, I guess, sort of the intersection of dance and immersive technology, and sort of like, what does the future look like in terms of being able. One of the things that I just wanted to just briefly just try out here is just wanted to show of hands. How many of you folks, I guess, would describe yourselves as working in technology? And how many of you would describe yourselves as working sort of in culture and dance? That's awesome. It's about a 50-50 split. That's great. Okay, cool. All right. Well, we're just going to get going. So the format tonight is going to be we're going to have a panel discussion, and towards the end of it, we'll just open up to audience questions. And after that, we'll just have a mixer. There's food and drink down the back, and then we'll just keep on going for the whole evening. And we'll just basically just keep this discussion going. And the idea is that this is going to be a series that's going to run over the next few months, where we're going to basically dive deeper and deeper into this. It's going to be very, very cool. I'm going to hand it over to Lily here and talk a little bit about me.
Thank you, Lindsay. Really a pleasure to see all of you here this evening. Thank you so much for supporting this new endeavor. We're really, really grateful to Adobe for hosting the Museum of Dance here, as we are actually a brand new nonprofit just founded in San Francisco in 2018 after several years of research globally to find out why a museum of dance, an innovative, cutting-edge one, doesn't exist, basically. And knowing that there are significant archives that are housed globally, but a lack of participation in terms of public engagement and inviting in people to really experience dance on a hands-on level in a way that feels that you're invited to the conversation versus there's the dancers and then the audience. And so we've been working hard to really reach out to the community this year, and again, we're so grateful to Adobe for having us here this evening. I just want to also give a special thanks to our artists here this evening. They come from a wide assortment of just incredible companies. I don't know how many of you attend dance in the Bay Area, but we have dancers from Margaret Jenkins Dance Company, ODC, Lions Ballet, and the Capacitor genius here, who's actually worked with Batik as well in some of the film you'll be trying on with the VR headsets. We are also particularly excited to be merging with the tech world. There seems to be a little bit of a conversation in maybe the social media landscape of artists being quote-unquote pushed out of the Bay Area, and as that has been the truth, no blame needs to be put on tech. We're really excited to collaborate and innovate with you as innovation exists across all minds and bodies, and especially excited for this, what's about to happen tonight. So we're really welcome questions, comments. Very much excited to be connected with you and our team here tonight. We're scattered throughout to be part of the conversation of Museum of Dance. We're looking for fundraisers, donors, support, collaborators, sponsors, partners, dancers, you name it. So just don't be shy. We'd love to connect with you. And I'll be MIA for a little bit and back soon, but just hoping that my next addition to my family can just be part of the team as well. So thanks again so much, you guys, and hope you enjoyed this evening.
Pfeiffer, Jody, Corey, Carolina, and Rafael. That's it. That's good. That's all right. I don't know your name, sorry. Anyway, I'm just going to hand it over to you guys to basically just say just a little bit about yourselves. And thank you.
Pfeiffer, I am a virtual and augmented reality producer. During the day, I work for YouTube on the immersive video front, and during the night, sometimes, I go and film dance and music festival culture, and so that's like my, the way to balance my artistic side and my technology side.
Hi, I'm Jody Helmask. I'm the founder and director of Capacitor Performance Group, and I design motion sculptures and bring together scientists and technologists to create shows with athletic dancers and circus artists, often about the natural world. So if you can get all of that in one online. And I've had the pleasure of working with Batik on Behind the Neural Forest, which you'll see more about.
Hello everyone, I'm Corey Brady and I'm with the Margaret Jenkins Dance Company and I've been in the Bay Area since 2003.
Hi, I'm Carolina Chalowska. I'm a freelancer in San Francisco, originally from Sweden, Stockholm. I've been here for about a decade, and yeah, I've been dancing with mostly recently Margaret Jenkins Dance Company. I was with Gary Moulds Productions for about 8 years.
Hi, I'm Bob Johnson. I'm a former Orleans ballet dancer and now freelance dancer. I've been in the Bay Area for about 8 or 9 years. I came from Hawaii to here to get some real dance training, and that was when I understood the beauty of dance and how much more you can do with it. And I figured this is the place to actually learn to be an artist, and that so much gets swept up in the commercial and all that stuff. So.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Awesome. Good to have you here. So I think the thing I just wanted to just quickly open with was the project that me and Jody worked on, Into the Neural Forest. So it's there on the headsets back there if you want to be able to check it out. And that was our experiment in terms of trying to figure out what does it take to sort of, I guess, adapt a dance performance and make it work for viewing in a headset. And sort of like, what are the things that you lose and what are the things that you gain when you do that? So I'd like to just quickly show behind the scenes video. So I think while I'm getting that set up, Jody, maybe you want to say a little bit about it.
Well, I think a lot is in the thing, but in hindsight, from this distance, I feel like there's a lot we learned in this process about proximity to the performance and to the performers, and how much is too much in a VR 180 space. And as the director, in hindsight, I'm thinking about layering. Like, should I have allowed more layering, meaning performers coming in front of other performers, or should I have kept it as separate as I did? Anyway, so you'll see some of it here, and you can see it on the headset in the back.
In 2017, we had our first virtual reality panel discussion where we brought in Botek Joshi to be the moderator. And so in the audience at that panel discussion was Jody Lomask. Out of that panel came our first virtual reality collab film.
Jody was great, and she invited me to a performance. And when I got there was this lady with very tall hair who was in front of me, and it was a distraction. But when the performance started, she dropped away, the audience dropped away, and it was like I was right there next to the stage. And I realized that's what the VR performance needed to be. It needed to replicate that feeling of being right there next to the stage.
Into the Neural Forest is a reduction of Capacitor's fully made show, Synaptic Motion. It is a show that I created because I was curious about where do creative ideas come from. So I had my brain imaged in fMRI and EEG while I was choreographing. And what I learned is that rather than my ideas and my choreography coming from a particular region of the brain, it was a much more integrated process, many regions of the brain connecting to one another that generated the choreography. Yeah, good, great. So what was the first camera position?
The first camera position was 0.7 and 1.6. I put together a very quick little test so that we could walk around a virtual stage. We could start placing dancers, we could start placing set pieces on this virtual stage. So we can get an idea of, like, what does this look like when you're in a headset?
Is this his audience? I was thinking Tensegrity was here.
Oh, nice. Okay, got it.
I got very excited about the idea of creating a 180 VR experience of our work because I've been disappointed by 2D documentation of my live performances. When I experienced 3D film, I just thought, oh, of course I've been disappointed. We've been missing out on depth.
When we got there on the day, we couldn't use a tripod because the floor was sprung, it was going to bounce up and down. And we figured out a way to hang the camera from the ceiling instead.
When you look at Into the Neural Forest, you're seeing many different portraits of a brain. One that's embodying automatic functions like heart rate and breathing and sensory activity. Then a performer enters and he's embodying the higher function of the brain, creative process.
It's so real. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Big person.
Not everybody can comfortably watch an immersive film in a headset. And we were lucky in that we were able to get a looking glass display that allows us to present the film holographically instead and still get that strong feeling of 3D but without a headset.
Our motto at San Francisco Dance Film Festival is experience dance in a new way. One of the ways that we're doing that is by embracing new technologies and to move the art form forward in compelling new ways.
So yeah, that was a very good time. Really enjoyed that. So it gives you an idea of sort of like, if we wanted to sort of do this at the very high end, what does that kind of work look like? I think I'd like to sort of start off the panelists sort of, I guess, back in sort of a little bit more of the real world, sort of like what's happening right now in terms of where people are at, right? And I wanted to start looking at addressing the general question of what's the difference between the feeling that you get from seeing a live performance versus a recorded performance. Like what works for you, what doesn't?
So a live performance versus a recorded one. I think even when I look at the catalog of my projects over the years, no matter how amazing a piece was live, I'm always a little disappointed when I see it in 2D. And it's just hard to relate to what it was like to be there. And I think what I love about the VR immersive world is that it simply puts you in the room with the performers and with the performance. And in a way, it's so simple that it's almost obvious. But when you look back at what it was like to look at 2D, you realize how much was lost. So I think it's the simplicity and the richness of having depth back again is what most excites me about working with this new technology.
Well, another thing I was going to say too is just a straightforward live performance. Every performance is slightly different, and no matter how much you rehearse something and practice it, it's always going to be slightly different and have a very special feel. It's like that performance is very unique to that moment in time. And with a recorded performance, you can capture something, but you're not quite going to get quite the full experience from that.
Yeah, and another thing to add to that is, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the lines or the technicality of dance, but there is something to be said about the angles, and I feel that when dance is filmed, it gets, I mean, like you said, there's lack of depth, but also it changes the lines and then just that energetic feeling of what you're witnessing. So, I mean, from our perspective, it's always hard to watch that because our lines are cut. We don't look as if we would look if you saw us live. But yeah, also just the spirit of the communal vibration of the room is completely gone, of course, when you're seeing it on a computer screen or on TV. So yeah, that's another thing that you don't really feel it as much.
So the difference for me is, I agree with you in the sense of communal experience when you watch a live dance performance. Sorry. When you watch a live dance performance, it's you feel yourself experiencing what someone's doing on stage, not alone and with other people. And you can have that same feeling if you're watching it on a movie or watching it on your phone with your friends around or watching it on a computer. But there's something about this infinity loop of a dancer performing and giving their energy, and then you receiving their energy, getting excited by that, and without, I'm gonna shoot my energy back at you, dancer person. You're just innately doing that. It's just something that happens when we witness something. And so, in a sense, you, as a viewer, are directly affecting what you're seeing. You're directly affecting the dancer. So if you're watching a dancer perform and you're not really into it, then they're going to start to drag. And if you watch a dancer perform and you're up here, then there's a chance that they're going to be elevated. However, watching something on the screen, I haven't been able to see the VR stuff, so I'm super excited to do that. That sounds cool. I like to play some VR games and stuff, so that's all I understand. But if you watch a live performance, I don't know how much money everybody got, but I can't watch every single performance. So it's a little different every time. That's going to be a bunch of money to watch it over and over and over again. So to have that handy right here or on this computer screen, that means that there's replayability. And that also means that, okay, I watched it live and I had this experience, but now I can see all these little nuances. I didn't notice that they did something with their head, or they had a contraction there, or when that person jumped, their legs actually rotated in this way. So when you get to watch something over and over again, it allows you to honestly dig deeper in a very specific way that you're not able to do when you watch it live.
And it does depend on how it's filmed too, because we do use film footage to restage works, and sometimes you can't quite see, and you're just trying to get all the little details in there and stuff, so that can be a challenge.
So, as far as that goes, then, do you feel like, there's dance and it's had its place in the world for hundreds of years at this point, right? In terms of how we formulate our current formal understanding of dance. What does the future of it look like in terms of sort of where does it live now in terms of live performances, but then also, its expression in other media?
I can go this time if you want. The future. I don't know what the future of dance looks like, but it is both on the stage and it is in a recording. It can't leave the stage. And the reason being, I don't know. I grew up dancing hip hop on the streets, and so my understanding of dance was this thing where you would be surrounding someone in the middle, and the circle's not very big. It's really intimate, and so then to go from there to concert dance, where I'm far back and I'm witnessing. It opened up a realm for me. It's not that one realm's better than the other, but concert dance allows you to see formations and geometry and a fuller picture than when you're really close. There's not one that's better than another, because of course if you're really close to someone who's really whipping it up, you can't help but catch a vibe. And of course if you're far away and you're watching, sometimes, you can't see someone's facial expression, so it may be a bit harder. However, when you, sorry, let me find a different way to say that. Watching it on stage with other people, it creates community. And if you take that away and the future is solely projected on a screen or on your laptop, community is already disappearing. And it will further or accelerate that disappearing. It's just another way. And again, I think art needs to change in so many ways. It's not very accessible to many people, which is another reason why community breaks. But nonetheless, it can't disappear entirely. However, like, I've seen some footage of dance shot in particular ways where it's transcendent, and I think that there is a true art in cinematography. In fact, cinematography, the definition is the art of filmmaking, and I think that just the same, you can have a terrible choreographer that puts work out and you're not able to be moved, not because they're just bad, but because they're underdeveloped. It's the same, like, I feel like the filming of dance is an underdeveloped thing where some people got it and there's not always that much room to really learn like how to do it. Can I have a dancer next to me who can let me know this angle is actually more interesting because it shows this or that? So I think that very much so, videography, filming, and the projection of dance on multimedia surfaces is a part of the future, but it has to be on the stage as well, I believe.
So yeah, I completely agree with that. I think technology should enhance dance. I mean, we can't separate from it. That's our future. So I feel that it's just important to see that it's a tool, it's an enhancement, but it's not a substitute. We still need to sit in an audience and witness it live. Another thing I was thinking about is that a very positive thing about technology developing in the dance realm is that if you are in a remote area and have no access to a city or fine culture, then being able to really feel a performance, in your house or so, is a unique gift. So I would love, we all do this because we want to share our passion and love of dancing to as many people as possible. So the way to do that, the solution would be to give access to people to feel it more. So yeah, I think it's just really important to see also a little bit what Kuji was saying, it's no matter how you film it, how you present dancing, because there's so many perspectives, and when you're seeing it live, when it's being filmed, a stage performance is from the director of the movie is deciding your point of view. But that's the beauty of VR, I feel, that it could create, just like you do when you're sitting in the audience, it could create an opportunity for you to dive and decide, like, where do I look, where do I complete my story? Can I have more of a responsibility of what I'm seeking when I'm watching a performance? Of course, that can also be taken to the extreme. So you see both sides of the positive and the negative, and specifically now, since we're talking about it in the VR world.
I find that it has also started to creep up in the work that we're making too. And Margaret Jenkins, we actually created a piece where we built material, we filmed it on location, and then we further developed the piece for the stage. So we actually used the film as part of the piece. So we were actually using that and interacting with it. So it actually is finding its way into the work.
Characterize it as part of the expression itself, like film becomes
Exactly.
part of the announcement.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Maybe I've lost our thread here, but the part of I'm not sure what the question was, but the point I wanted to make, hearing what you guys said, was that I don't think the ritual of live performance is ever going to lose its power. That's from the dawn of time. Humans need that, and humans do that. It's very basic, it's very natural, elemental. But I think as the technology, and we can't deny that social media has created this huge appetite for content and for just because of the technological tools, people can consume so much more stuff. And that's what choreographers and dancers are. We are content creators. And we are good at creating stuff that's cool to look at. And people can feel it and they want to engage with it. I think as the technology gets better and better at its best, the technology kind of disappears and it becomes less of a thing. And it doesn't create as much distance between the viewer and the performer. And it'll get more and more like the live ritual. But I don't think anyone imagines that it will replace the live ritual. So,
I definitely agree that there's having a live performance or dance with other people is just such a sacred space. And I think that that is the future of dance, is continuing to have these sacred spaces. I think what VR brings to the mix is this, VR is the first medium that is embodied. It's like, you know, being able to be inside of a film and you have, even if you don't literally have a body, in immersive video, generally you don't look down and see a body, but you still have this space inside of the performance or inside of the place that you're in. And so I think like that's kind of where that magic happens, where dance is an embodied art, and then you suddenly, as the viewer, you have this embodied experience as well. And that is something that, I mean, traditional cinematography can be amazing with capturing dance, but it's more, I would say, curated. The camera person is telling you, look here in this kind of way, look this deep, and in VR, you have infinite depth to look where you want to look, if you're doing things right, and you can look around you, but of course we can harness these other parts of VR cinematography where maybe the camera's moving and like what does it feel like to actually be dancing in that space with the dancers. There's a really cool VR piece called Through You, and they did a lot of complex cinematography in it with these two dancers moving in the space with you, and that just gives you such a different experience as well. So.
Go off program for a second. Going back to what Corey was saying how learning choreography from 2D video can be super frustrating because you're sitting there and you're trying to learn this part, but then the film editor decided to cut to that person's part, and you're like, whoa, wait, what happened over there? And just simply as a tool for documentation, if you shot it in VR 180, you can be like, okay, I'm going to ignore everything over there, and I'm going to watch this performer the whole time, because that's who I'm learning. And, you know, the whole thing is actually captured, and then, so in a very practical way, it'll make things like learning off of video, which is really our only way to document the work and teach it again and keep the work alive, is we rely on these video tools. So, yeah.
So I have something related to that. Something I wanted to dig into was sort of cinematography and choreography sort of working together, right? Because, you know, these are two things that are sometimes in opposition, sometimes in concert. And I feel like in dance especially, in dance film especially, there's like a really interesting push and pull there. And I wanted to just dig into that, but I wanted to start with sort of like, from a cinematographic point of view, who is the viewer when it comes to sort of dance film, right? Are they a dancer? Are they on stage? I think this equally applies to sort of 2D video as well as VR. So I wanted to sort of get your thoughts on that. Like, who should the viewer be, or should it be anyone?
I feel like the last few years, dance has become more popular on film, and I feel that the San Francisco Dance Film Festival is a big part of that. I don't know if maybe some of you are familiar with that. They have really just picked up dance on film to a whole different level. The materials that are being submitted are really beautiful and just really high level technology. So I feel that it's a matter of educating the audience of what it feels maybe to dance, because, and that kind of ties into the previous thing of like, if VR can be of help to have people embody dancing. I'm not saying everybody has to be a dancer, definitely not. I know a lot of people are very fearful of dancing and would never even think of dancing. I know those people, and I'm not arguing that everybody has to go out and shake, but I'm saying maybe if you know how hard it is, or you have a little bit of a taste of what we're doing, you can appreciate it more, and you can actually see the beauty and the importance of it. I mean, it's like anything else that's a little bit more complicated. The more you learn, the more you understand it, and it just emphasizes and grows in perspective.
I feel that both cinematography and choreography are like art forms, and so to answer the question about, sorry, the question is like, was one above the other, or how do they work together?
What does the tension between them look like? Because, you know, ideally what you want to be able to do is that you want to be able to film something without disturbing it, without changing it too much. But, you know, by necessity, when you point a camera at something, you crop out part of the world. Right?
Yeah.
You are framing things, you are making intentional decisions. So what does that look like for them? What's important to preserve?
I feel like when it comes to getting a cinematographer and a choreographer together, the outcome should be for the general public, or the not for archival means. I think that the VR idea for archiving that's the one. That sounds perfect. If I could just like, because I'm dyslexic, so looking at the computer, I'm confused at the right or the left, and if I could stand behind the person, like, oh, okay, now I know what it is. But for cinematography or a cinematographer and choreographer to come together, I think it should be a collaboration. I think they should both sit down and figure out, because the cinematographer has a dream just as much as the choreographers, and if they can work together to bring the choreographer's dream together without stepping on the cinematographer's dream, then I think that's where you make like the real gold. Because you know, if the cinematographer just says, I like that shot, and I like that shot, and I like that shot, and it doesn't actually tell the story of the dance, then you're missing it. But if the choreographer's like, you just should show this, and just should show this, and just should show this, then they're looking at what they want to see. But they're ignoring that, you know, if you're watching me talk right now, you're looking at me, and maybe the choreographer wants you to look at my jaw, but you're looking at me in the back of that and my relationship to her. So if the choreographer tries to control too much and just give what they want the viewer to see, then it ignores all the other things that are happening around, like a different angle and things like that. So I think that it should be a true collaboration, and that one is not actually greater than the other, but they need to have a dialogue.
Can I I kind of think of it like any of my collaborations, that as a choreographer director, I'm going for a certain feeling and I'm going for a certain experience. I'm trying to create a very specific experience for my audience. And in the VR realm, it's an audience of one, which I really appreciate. I appreciate that it's intimate like that. I don't have to figure out how to make this look good for 2,000 people. It just has to work for one person who's sitting with goggles on. And for each of my collaborations, what I'm going for is, does this contribution accentuate and push further whatever that initial feeling and experience is that I was trying to do? If I could do it all by myself, and then I wouldn't be collaborating. The point of any collaboration is because with these, 5, 20, 30 other people, I'm able to take my initial impulse and make it so much more engaging, so much more powerful, so much more salient. But so in a sense, for me, it's not like who, above and below. It's more like I'm just looking around and there's like a light in the distance, and I'm trying to push us towards the light, and whatever pushes us forward, I'm saying thumbs up to, and whatever is distracting us or throwing us off course, I go, let's put that somewhere else.
The other elements of VR that definitely gets at what you were talking about, where you have this audience of one person, is this intimacy. And that's probably my favorite thing about VR, is having these really intimate experiences with like an artist. Many times I make work about artists, or I mean in the empathy sector of VR, like bringing somebody to a very different part of the world and allowing them to just really see through somebody else's eyes, and in that moment of being right up close to the dancers, that's a very different experience than you have when watching dance traditionally. And I think it's more compelling, to be honest. But then you're losing this, like visually more compelling. But then how do you incorporate that kind of that magic of being present with other people? And I don't think that social VR fixes that, for the record.
Awesome. All right. So I think before I open this up to audience questions, I wanted to start with I wanted to sort of have a little bit of a tricky question, which is sort of, especially since we're in the Bay Area, there's this imbalance of sort of tech being overrepresented, and I wanted to make sure that, there's an opportunity here for sort of artists to talk to how, what kind of responsibility does film and technology bear to dance? What kind of things would you like to see, things advancing on the technology front be careful of when it comes to its relationship to dance? How would you like to see that go?
That's a tricky question.
Maybe let us credit ourselves if we create something, like so many things just get taken and dancers are just anonymous. Nobody knows who they are or where they are or why they ever did that.
There's been this thing on Instagram, maybe like the last few months, of dancers saying, I'm not going to do work for free, I'm not going to dance photography for free. And it seems like such a, why not? It promotes all this, but it kind of devaluates us. It pushes us into this place of, years of hard work and money put into this, and then suddenly, just like something that might go up on a billboard you don't even get paid for. This actually does happen quite often with very big, companies, and it's just really it's a big disappointment for us. I come from Sweden, a country that is, supports dance in a very different way than here. So I came from a place of having I went to the Royal Swedish Ballet School. The school was for free. I mean, of course, support to get into and all this, but I had free school, free shoes, free this point. It was in the opera house from my young age. Basically, that was government sponsored. All these things that are now kind of rising up more and more. I'm starting to be very passionate about, because I feel like it's our human rights to have art for free, or be sponsored, or that we can survive off of it. And it is unfortunate. I have many friends that have left, very talented artists that have left the Bay Area, because again, the work does not pay enough for us to be here. So it's a matter of value and seeing how we can contribute to society in a broader perspective, and actually working with us and paying us, because we have immense knowledge beyond just what we are showing you. And maybe perhaps we need to educate the audience and the public on what we're doing. Maybe that's the key, the education of what does dance mean, why is this important. I know several people that don't feel anything. They even see me dance, my friends, and they're like, you were beautiful, but I didn't get it. And that's a huge problem.
For me, it's going off of what Jody said, having the rights to your own image and taking credit, being given credit for the work you put in, especially nowadays for dancers, they often are called upon to create movement, a lot of movement. And so that's just extra work and burden for us. I mean, it's great because we get to contribute our own vision to the story, but oftentimes we're not credited for it. usually not. So
I don't understand how this works, but I know like if you get an X amount of views on Spotify, then you're paid for it, or it equates to something like that. That's a start where I'm coming from. But it's like, what if, you do like a video or you make a video and then, YouTube puts ads on the video, so someone is able to make money, whether it's the person who produced the film, who paid for the dancer to be in it. However it can work out, I don't know. It's just off the top of the dome. But like, what if, like, depending on the amount of views that video gets, then whether it's a sponsor or the producer or the person who put the video out, like, they then have to put money towards some live performance that happens after that video gets so many hits, so that it keeps funneling. Because I mean, if things change and the majority of my time was spent just performing for the camera, I believe that I personally would probably stop dancing or just go back out on the street corner and dance, because it is that dancing for someone that I can touch and that I can see their smile. Like, it's talking to you guys. If I was talking to a film or a video camera all the time and I didn't get to like look at you guys in the eyes, I probably wouldn't want to talk about this stuff, because it's just so cool to be able to talk to you guys. Like, we're gonna be on the bus and like, we're not even gonna talk to one another. You know what I mean? So it's cool to have this moment to do that. So I'm just saying that I don't know how. Like, I don't think anyone owes anyone anything, and I think that it would be good to be like, yeah, that person did that. Give credit. That's a big deal. But I think it's the finding a way to take the viewers and then be able to give them that live experience, which then will ideally invigorate a dancer to want to have something recorded again, so that we can always get back to a communal space. That's my thing. I don't know if that's at all.
No, absolutely. I think we're seeing this in quite a few sort of creative realms, right? Around sort of like photographers not being paid for their work, or other creative space, musicians as well, right? People not getting credit for this, and I think that's going to be an ongoing thing. It's definitely something that I know a lot of people are looking at in terms of trying to, rebalance the fairness of that situation. So definitely something that's top of mind for a lot of people. Fantastic. Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna open this up to audience questions. So, do we have any technical questions? All right, I'm just gonna hand the microphone around.
What's being done to look for like 100 years forward, to specifically archive and recall, and have systems kind of available for that longer, not just 5 minutes from now, but like 100 years from now?
I don't actually know what's being done, but like if 100 years from now every performance was on VR, that would be lit, because it would just be so easy to recall it and to relive it.
So I think, speaking to that question just a little bit, I can go on for days about it, but I'll be as brief as I can. I think if you look back at the history of capture, I think there's always been a sort of a leading edge where the capture technology has been a little bit ahead of what we can actually sort of conventionally consume, right? So I'll pick an example from like the early days of photography, I've heard about it. But for example, people were taking color photographs pretty much since the advent of photography, right? So like, the first camera I think was invented around 1840, and people were taking color photographs in 1850. And we assume that like, the past is all sort of black and white, but like there are color photos from that era. And it's just that, there was no convenient way of displaying that, so we didn't see a lot of that. So I think, in terms of trying to figure out how we're going to store all of this stuff, I think there's an argument for using as advanced technology as you can to sort of capture what's in front of you, and just hoping that there's going to be some way to sort of consume it a little bit further down the road. And there's a certain degree of flexibility and a little bit of faith that's sort of needed with that, right? So it's sort of like, I'm just going to capture this, and we're just going to hope that everything else is sort of going to catch up to get there, and you just sort of like, you can't get too constrained by standards, if that sort of makes sense.
It is definitely a frustration, because
because I've been creating work for 30 years, right, if you include some of my college work. And I have about 200 mini DV tapes that I don't even know how to look at anymore. So, I mean, and that's the problem, right? We capture it, and then the technology moves forward, and then what happens to all that media? I don't know.
It's an evolving thing, I think.
Put it in the cloud and hope that somebody's going to upload it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any good answer to that yet, unfortunately. But I mean, like, if you look at the work that, for example, like some of the standards bodies are doing, I mean, it's all sort of very prosaic. Like, you know, folks like MPEG, they're really like looking at sort of like building standards for being able to store video so it's going to last 40 years, 50 years, 100 years. You know, they really are giving it some serious thought about that. And for example, like work from the National Science Foundation or Library of Congress, they're all over that. And there's plenty of resources that you can see there to sort of to start examining that. And for example, there are all these groups looking at earlier explorations into VR video. So for example, like, you know, what does an archival version of VR video look like? And that's definitely happening.
You've talked a lot about the interaction between the dancers and the audience, and how looking at the film it's often flattened. And I think maybe you address this a little bit. It seems to me, I'm assuming that most of the film that's out there was done at live performances where there might have been an audience. But it looks like with this VR, the dancers are performing without an audience and without that feedback. How can you keep that vibrancy of the interaction between the dancer and the audience when you're filming for a VR and you're filming for a hole from the ceiling with the camera on it?
That's crazy because I was literally just thinking about that. Like, what if you had a performance and then you had somebody on the floor just like with you filming? But yeah, I mean, I guess VR is 360, so as long as it doesn't take away from the actual video, I feel like it would be amazing to do one of those archival shoots for an actual live audience.
We had this thing come up where when we were, that's one of the concerns that we had when we shot into the Neural Forest. Like, what are we going to do in terms of, having these, giving the artists and the performers to sort of have something that they can play off against. And a couple of things happened that were very interesting. One of them was that the camera itself became personified, right? It's this weird little like bug-eyed thing, and people would look at it and it felt like this little alien that you were performing against, but it gave someone this very specific thing to perform against. And we said, like, imagine this is a person, or imagine this is a thing. So they would play off against that, right? So there was a nice sort of target to hit. And because it was close, it was a lot easier to do because we would try and get the performers close to the camera. The other thing that happened was that we don't give performers nearly enough credit for how much they can adapt, right? So we got the performers to sort of watch some of the footage in a headset, and they adapted their performances on the spot. They're able to sort of like figure out how does this look when I'm specifically looking at this in VR, and they did a bunch of adjustment right there and then to sort of make their performance read correctly to the camera. And I think they did a really great job of being able to sort of act to a camera, and it was amazing. It was very cool.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking part of what we were doing too is I remember when we did our rehearsal day, and I remember standing behind the little bug eyes being like, okay, I'm right here, this is your audience, I'm right here. And then by the time we came around to shooting, they had gotten a chance to see what it looks like. They were comfortable, they understood what the camera was seeing, and then on the shoot they knew what they were doing. But one thing that we didn't really talk about that was kind of cool about that shoot is that by the second day, I was able to direct it while wearing the goggles. So I was able to direct the dancers while seeing how it would look in the end. So that was really cool. And yeah.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, and the way it was oriented, just the way it turned out, is I had to sit backwards to the audience. So I had the front was to the back. So anyway, I had my back to the dancers while I was yelling directions out over my own head. It was totally silly, but it worked. It worked.
From a technical perspective, would you be able to have an audience at a VR shoot that you guys did?
Totally. So there's two different kinds of immersive videos. Make things simple. It's kind of like mix and match, but you can have 360 video, which is a full sphere. You can have 180 video, which is just focusing on what's in front of you. And so obviously, like thinking about your street performance where you're like in this circle of people, that's going to be rad in 360. And something that's on stage might be better in 180. But then again, who knows? Break the rules. Just like feeling it out. And then of course there's stereoscopic immersive video, which means that you have a 3D effect. And there's monoscopic, which means that you don't. And definitely if you're shooting dance, you want that 3D effect. So yeah, you could have an audience. Generally the way that I shoot dance is everybody's dancing around you, so that you can like feel like you're in the midst of this. And like the goal for me, like if I put a headset on somebody and they start dancing, I'm like, it's good. So.
I think we've got time for one more question. Okay, so for here, and you give just a tiny detail. I have a concern that sometimes when we talk about tech and art, we kind of have the sense that the art world is just kind of really in the past. And when I actually had the opportunity to work with Alonzo King, we were at a Q&A like this, and someone said, what's the difference between classical and contemporary dance? Which was a question we needed. He said, it's always contemporary until someone says, this piece was so moving that now we say it's classical, and we're always going to harken back and point back to that piece because it moved us so intensely. One of the things I think is a limitation with some of this is that we need that organic experience in theater. And while our visual is being curated through VR or AR, I don't necessarily want to curate it. It's kind of like I can have 1,000 Facebook friends and no real intimate friends, right? And so my question to those of you on the tech side of this is, what are you going to do culturally, technically, and from a marketing perspective to honor the artistic practice that's happening and help encourage people to get into the theater, to consume new work, and to help the tradition move forward?
I'm telling you, we got to get the hits so that people pay, like put on a free performance so that then people can just go to it. You don't got to have no money, just you like it on the video, go watch it on the stage now.
I think a lot about how technology and being human are doing this dance together. It's really tricky because we've seen already how much these technologies that we use shape us. I would say that technology and filmmaking actually are both, they don't have real substance on their own. They are a tool to deliver a message, especially like a platform technology. But every technology is in essence a tool, and so like I think the reason I'm from the Bay Area, and I think the reason that technology sprouted here in such a way was because artists and activists laid down this fertile soil of disruption and thinking outside of the box and all this stuff that really shaped, how we view what a futurist or a technologist is today. But if you don't have any connection to that, all you can do is make infrastructure with nothing filling it. In terms of designing for and the infrastructure, just like architecture, can move people in different ways through the space. our technological infrastructure moves us, and as we move, we are shaped. And so there's certain design components that you can think about when you are making technology that help maintain humanness. You can try to design for mindfulness, designing for people to sit with their thoughts a little bit more instead of designing something that's like rapidly back and forth. You can design platforms that people have a say in shaping. There's all sorts of nuances there. But yeah, I mean, I think that Batik has done it right in terms of like asking these folks, like, how do we, like, you know, like I know how to make this camera work, but maybe I don't know like the soul of the person that I'm documenting. I don't know their soul like they know their soul. So yeah, it's just like letting the people be their own storytellers instead of coming in and being like, I am now the person setting the narrative.
Thank you. I think that there's a choreography here, you know, in a way between sort of like technology and the arts here. And I think it's important to make sure that there's conversation going back and forth, right? I think it's a little naive to say that, for example, like tools are ethically neutral. But sometimes you make a tool, you think it's going to be fine, but then it has implications further down the road, like certain photo editing packages. But you know, but like, you know, what do you do once that's happened, right? And it's a matter of having, keeping that conversation alive, right, and understanding that, you know, these things evolve over time, and you know, a lot of times these tools get made, we can't foresee all that. There's human beings we can't, right? Did we know that, for example, like, you know, when film was first made, did we know that it was going to be used for propaganda? It didn't occur to people at the time, but there it was, right? So, and it's a matter of sort of keeping the conversation alive and keeping the back and forth going, right? You can't just lock it off. And it's important for all of us to keep talking. That's part of the reason we're having this evening right here, is to do exactly that. So, it's Linda. Yeah.
If any of you have a chance to go see the Cunningham film that's in the theater right now, this is an incredible example, Jody, where they supposedly, they did shoot it in 3D, and you can tell it they shot it in 3D, but it's only showing in the theaters here in 2D. However, it's a perfect example of taking archival choreography from someone that you don't access often very much, and original stuff has been redone, so it's now accessible to a present audience in a very different way. The cinematography on the dancing is extraordinary. It is absolutely extraordinary, and I am so unhappy that they're not showing it in 3D. However, I hope that you all go look at it, because it shows the technique of bringing that choreography forward into a present-day audience and go, wow, now I get it. Who was first Cunningham? Who knew, right? So I hope that they eventually show it in 3D so that even the technology people here will understand what they can do to help bring this choreography forward. And we can yell at the theaters for not having
What theater is it showing?
I think it's just now moving to the play.
Right.
And that's also emphasizing the heritage, the American pride of being the founders of modern dance. Like, I think it's really important not to get nationalistic, absolutely not, but to be proud of, like, yes, amazing Forever First, we're here, and they've changed the world of dance.
Oh, first of all, I just want to just give a quick hand to our panelists. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight. So what we can do is, if you'd like to see our VR film, it's on the headsets just back there. You can pick one up and start playing. It's pretty straightforward. And there's food and drinks. So I want to encourage you all to sort of, like, if you've got any questions, if you want to continue the conversation, please approach our panelists. They're very friendly, I promise. And just keep chatting with them. And thank you so much. Hillary, do you want to say a couple of closing notes?
So thank you again so much all for being here and joining in on this really important conversation, and great questions from the audience as well. The next step often the next questions we often get are, what's next? So as Batik mentioned, this is an ongoing partnership with Adobe, with the Museum of Dance, and to reiterate, our purpose and goals of the museum is really to bring dance to the forefront in our communities across the world, but also to include all of you in the conversation, because the question, why dance, or why is dance important, it's the most human form of communication since the beginning of time. So it's really within all of us. We may not be a lines performer, but we certainly do have that element of and that opportunity to communicate in because we are human. And it's what makes us important. And we're really excited about this next series. So logistically, we're looking to possibly an every other month workshop or an opportunity to have more panel discussions like this to bring the community together, and also find tools and ways to develop answers to these questions we're asking. So to work together with the community, with all of you, technology experts, dancers, and to really continue elaborating and explaining this without it sort of stopping here. So we look forward to being in touch with you, and on a very logistical level, if you visit museumdance.org, we will have all the events current up for you to stay in touch with us, and look forward to having you more. So thank you.